So y'all, I got called a nigger.
This is a world premiere. This is a world.
Hey y'all, welcome back. It's time for another Wednesday Hump Day rant. And before I jump right into what it is that I want to get into, I want to call out some other things that have been going on YouTube. A YouTube content creator who we all know and love has turned his focus towards Emily from A Bite-Sized Vegan because of the way that she raises money. Number one, get out her money. Why are you even in her money in the first place? It's just petty. Another thing is the fact that she's been transparent about how much money she's earning, how that money is being spent, to insult her audience, to say that they're old people who don't understand technology, who aren't savvy enough to understand that the content that they're getting is bad content. That's ageism, and we can now add ageism to the sexism and racism that that individual has already been accused of. It doesn't matter, you can say whatever you want to say, but I hope that people really aren't foolish enough to buy what this individual is saying about Emily from A Bite-Sized Vegan without doing some investigation of their own. I've gone to Emily's channel. I've appreciated Emily's content for the year now that I've been intensely focused on becoming an ethical vegan, and I think the content is great. I think her use of her camera, her use of lighting, her use of filtering really creates an amazing effect. Her use of graphics in her videos is really top notch and really helps to make her message clear. Who's to say what accounts for what is good or bad to an individual? I was using social media, and there was someone who had made a post where they had this slightly veiled threat, and I was asking them to just be a little bit more clear about what it was that they were saying. I didn't want to assume that they were being threatening, but I was just letting them know I would love to know a little bit more about what it is that they were intending to do to people who believed in a certain ideology. The person basically responded with, "That's because you're a dumb nigger." You know, I don't want to say that I speak for my race, but when people call me nigger, when people express that kind of emotional, I hate black people racism, I understand that that's not the racism that is the problem in America. I understand that the thinking and the ideology that goes into that type of emotional, belief-based racism does serve as a pillar to maintain capitalism and to maintain the exploitation of black and brown people all over the world. And not just black and brown people, but black and brown people are disproportionately represented in the people who are the targets of violence in the world today. Has anybody called Richard Spencer, who's been credited with being the founder of the alt-right, gave a 30-minute speech where he basically outlined his vision for a future for white America. In this speech, he basically claimed that Europeans have existed in the world without the need or support of anyone from any other culture. Which, if you know anything about the history of the United States at least, that is a load of crap. Richard Spencer talks about the identity of Europeans as proud conquerors. What he calls being a conqueror is what I think anyone else in the world would look at as murder and theft. In fact, I'm gonna stop using the term white supremacy. It's not white supremacy, it's the dominant mode of violence that the world has been engaged in for centuries now that just needs to stop. The United States as it is today would not exist without the exploitation of brown people, Africans, without the annihilation, close to annihilation of the indigenous people, the people who were here when the Europeans showed up. America became addicted to the free labor that they had because of slavery. And when the rest of the world had left slavery behind, America could not quite kick the habit. America established something called chattel slavery, which meant that you were a slave when you were purchased, that your children would be slaves, your children's children would be slaves, and as far as the South and the Southern slave owners were concerned, there was never going to be a time when Africans who were slaves were not going to continue being slaves in America. So when the Civil War ended and slavery officially came to an end in the United States, and we had the 13th Amendment that said that citizens of the United States could not be slave. They could not be slaves. With one catch. If you were convicted of a crime, you could be subjected to enforced labor. That gave the South all the ammunition that they needed to be able to continue exploiting Africans by criminalizing African behaviors, like being unemployed, like walking down the street, like looking at a white person. Great lengths were gone to ensure that the African population that had just been freed from slavery were going to continue being a free source of labor for the South to be able to rebuild, and not only rebuild, but to continue building wealth as they had for the 250 plus years before the end of slavery. So when people try to say that Africans haven't accomplished anything, that non-whites have not accomplished anything, that only Europeans are responsible for the world that exists today, that is, as I said before, a load of malarkey. Nothing that we have in America today could exist without, again, the exploitation of black and brown people around the world, the continued exploitation of black and brown people throughout the world. Where would America be without the continued exploitation of resources in the Middle East? Where would America be without the continued exploitation of resources in Africa? Where would America be without the continued exploitation of resources in Mexico, Central America, and South America? After the end of slavery, there was a continued campaign of violence against blacks in the South through peonage, through sharecropping in the most exploitative of ways, through criminal leasing programs that were used to build enormous amounts of wealth in the South. After slavery, criminal leasing programs continued into the 40s. It wasn't until 1966 that it became clear to white Americans, particularly white Southerners, that to kill a black person would be perceived as a crime. I want to say white people, but not just white people, because it's black people too, saying that to talk about slavery, to talk about the history of violence in the United States, is to be a victim. I beg to differ. Talking about slavery and the continued campaign of violence against black and brown people around the world, it is a badge of honor to me, because it means that Africans are the most resilient people on the planet. Imagine being taken from your home, taken to a strange land, forced to work for free, your family, your children, your children's children, for generations, for 250 years. Everything was done to keep those people down, and they still managed to survive. With all of the policies that have been creating, including redlining, including housing covenants, including being shut out of things like the New Deal and the GI Bill, black people have still managed to rise up again and again and be productive members of society in the United States. So you can call me a nigger all you want to. The focus of African Americans right now isn't getting white people to respect us, isn't getting white people to even like us. The focus of African Americans right now is to instill within young African Americans, all African Americans, the pride that they deserve to display, the pride that they deserve to feel for having survived, like I said before, a 350-year campaign of theft and violence against them in the United States. So that's it for this video. Like it if you like it. Share, comment, subscribe. This is Reg signing off. Love yourself. Peace.
And I love myself. The world is a ghetto, big guns and